Have you ever had something so good, so genuinely perfect that you couldn't trust it? That you felt this compulsive need to poke it, to test its foundations, just to see if it would crumble? That was me. That's how I ended up here in an apartment that's suddenly too big and too quiet. His name is Ezra. I say is because he still exists, of course, just not for me. When I describe him to people now, it sounds like I'm making him up. He was a physical therapist, someone whose entire job was to patiently help people heal. And he brought that energy into our life. He remembered I hated cilantro, that I liked my coffee with oat milk and a quarter of a sugar packet, that I had a specific, irrational fear of moths. He was the kind of man who would listen to me vent about my toxic boss for an hour and then say, "Okay, but what did you do for you today?" He was solid, he was safe. And he had female friends, not just one or two, but a whole constellation of them from his university days. A tight-knit group that had survived finals, bad breakups, and a shared house with a recurring mold problem. Lily, Anya, Chloe, Sam, they were a package deal with him, and in the beginning, I honestly thought it was sweet. It showed he was a good guy, capable of seeing women as whole people. He was never secretive. I was invited to their brunches, their board game nights. He'd tell me, "Oh, Lily called, she finally got the grant she was applying for," with the same open, uncomplicated joy he'd have talking about his brother. But the world I lived in, the one populated by my own friends, didn't see it that way. My best friend Vanessa, who I've known since we were teenagers, would listen to my happy stories and her brow would furrow. "It's a little weird though, isn't it?" she'd say over wine. "A guy with that many sisters? Honey, no man keeps a roster like that unless he's subconsciously keeping his options open. It's just inventory." It was a slow drip poison, a joke here, a cynical observation there, and it started to work. His transparency began to look like naivety. His loyalty to them started to feel like a resource being diverted away from me. The stage was being set, and I was too busy listening to the whispers from the audience to see I was the one building it. The catalyst was Lily, Dr. Lily, I should say. She'd finally, after 6 grueling years, finished her PhD in art history. Ezra was practically vibrating with pride when he told me, his whole face lit up. "She did it, Ro, she actually did it. I was thinking, would it be okay if we hosted a small party for her here, just our friends, her core group? It would mean the world to her." And I, playing the part of the supportive girlfriend, smiled and said, "Of course, honey, that sounds wonderful, she deserves it." But the words felt like ash in my mouth. A party for her, in our home. The home I had carefully curated, the space that was supposed to be our sanctuary, was about to become a stage for their perfect, impenetrable friendship. It felt like an invasion. I pictured them all laughing at inside jokes from a decade ago, their shared history hanging in the air like a thick fog I couldn't navigate. I would be the smiling, nodding accessory in my own living room. That evening, I was on the phone with Vanessa, relaying the plan. Her sigh was so heavy I could feel it through the receiver. "Oh, so you're playing hostess for his work wife's graduation party? In your own house," she said, her voice dripping with a kind of pitying condescension. "Rowan, you're a better woman than me. Seriously. You're going to be pouring wine for the woman he'd probably be with if he hadn't met you? It's generous." "It's not like that," I said, but my voice was weak, defensive. "Isn't it?" Vanessa pressed on, relentless. "It's a power play, a subtle one, but it is. They're all coming into your space to reinforce their territory, to remind you that they were there first. Remember when he spent that whole weekend helping Sam move instead of going to that concert with you? Or all those late-night calls with Anya about her tenure track? You're always graciously stepping aside. This is just the public coronation of you as the eternally understanding girlfriend. You have to set a boundary, or you'll be the sweet, accommodating doormat forever." Her words were like gasoline on a smoldering fire. The next day, I went shopping for the party. My choices were deliberate, tiny acts of war. I bought the expensive French cheeses I knew Ezra didn't care for but that Vanessa and my friends adored. I picked out a specific brand of Prosecco that was our drink. I was preparing the battlefield, not the menu. Ezra saw me bustling around, saw the bags from the gourmet market, and his eyes softened. "You're amazing, Ro, going all out for her like this, thank you." He thought my effort was for Lily. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. That conversation with Vanessa had cemented it. This wasn't a party, it was a performance, a test. My friends, Vanessa included, were all invited. They were my audience, my jury, and I couldn't let them see me as a fool. I had to show them, and by extension, Ezra and his friends, that I was the one in charge. I was going to draw a line, not in the sand, but right down the middle of our living room floor and make everyone choose a side. I convinced myself it wasn't about hurting Ezra. It was about protecting us, about asserting the primacy of our relationship. It was about winning. The night of the party, I felt like an actress waiting in the wings. I wore a black dress that was a little too sharp, a little too formal for a casual get-together. My makeup was a mask of cool confidence. Ezra, oblivious, just saw me looking beautiful. He kissed my shoulder as I was arranging the very expensive cheeses. "You're incredible," he whispered, his voice warm with genuine gratitude. "Lily's going to be so touched." For a fleeting moment, a wave of guilt washed over me. I saw the sincerity in his eyes and felt a pang of what I was about to do. But then Vanessa, Chloe, and another friend of mine, Maya, arrived, and their presence was like a shot of adrenaline. They surveyed the room, my carefully chosen Prosecco, and gave me a subtle, approving nod. The guilt vanished, replaced by a sense of shared purpose. The audience had arrived. Ezra's friends trickled in, bringing with them an easy, comfortable energy that immediately set my teeth on edge. They hugged Ezra, then me, presenting me with bottles of wine and small gifts for Lily. It was all so nice, too nice. Lily arrived last, glowing with accomplishment, a little overwhelmed by the fuss. She hugged me tightly. "Rowan, this is too much, thank you seriously. You didn't have to do all this." I just smiled, a brittle, polite smile. For the next hour, I was the perfect hostess. I floated through the apartment, refilling glasses, laughing at jokes I didn't quite get, a ghost at my own feast. I watched Ezra lean his head close to Lily's as she showed him a picture on her phone, their shoulders brushing. I watched Anya and Sam launch into an animated story about a disastrous college road trip, a story Ezra clearly knew by heart. They were a tribe speaking a language I'd never fully learn. Meanwhile, my own friends stood in a small, separate cluster near the kitchen island, their eyes following my every move, their expressions a mixture of morbid curiosity and vindication. Every shared laugh from Ezra's circle felt like a confirmation of Vanessa's theories. They weren't just friends, they were a wall and I was on the outside. The moment came, as I knew it would. Ezra tapped a spoon against his glass, calling for everyone's attention. He gave a short, beautiful speech about Lily. He talked about her brilliance, her perseverance, how she'd been a rock for him through some of his toughest times. He was beaming with a pure, uncomplicated pride. He raised his glass. "To Dr. Lily, we are all so damn proud of you." Everyone cheered, raising their glasses. To Lily, the room was filled with warmth, with genuine affection. And in that perfect, shining moment, I saw my opening. It was now or never. I picked up my own glass, took a deliberate step forward into the center of the circle, and waited for the cheers to die down. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat for the performance of a lifetime. I looked directly at Lily, then let my gaze sweep over Anya, Chloe, and the other women. I smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "You know," I began, my voice clear and carrying in the sudden quiet, "it's amazing. All of you, but you all know there's no such thing as a truly platonic friendship between a man and a woman, right? I mean deep down." Silence, it wasn't a gradual quiet. It was a sudden, violent vacuum, as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. The lingering smiles on people's faces froze, then curdled. Anya, who had been mid-laugh, looked like she'd been slapped. Sam's hand, which was on Lily's shoulder in a congratulatory gesture, dropped to his side. Lily herself, her face was a canvas of shock. The joyful, overwhelmed glow she'd had all night was just gone. Replaced by a pale, stunned hurt, it was as if I had thrown a glass of ice water on her. I glanced over at my friends. Vanessa had a small, triumphant smirk on her face. Maya was trying to hide a smile behind her wine glass. They were my audience, and I had delivered the line they came to hear. I had won. For a split second, I felt a surge of vindicated power. Then I looked at Ezra. He wasn't looking at me. His eyes were fixed on Lily, on her stricken face. And in his expression, I saw a sequence of emotions so rapid and devastating it stole my breath. First, confusion, then a dawning horror as my words fully registered. And finally, something I had never, ever seen from him, a deep, profound, and utterly cold disappointment. It was an expression that didn't just say I had done something wrong, it said I was something wrong. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't cause a scene. The consummate host, even in the wreckage I had created. He turned away from me, took a gentle step toward Lily, and spoke in a low, clear voice that was somehow more cutting than any shout. "I'm so sorry," he said, not to me but to her. To all of them, then he looked around at the stunned faces of his friends. I think we should call it a night." The exodus was swift and silent. It was like a funeral procession. No one made eye contact with me. They gathered their coats and bags with quiet, efficient movements, murmuring hushed goodbyes only to Ezra. Lily was the last of his friends to leave. As she passed me, her eyes were glassy with unshed tears, and she looked at me with a kind of bewildered pity. as if she was looking at a stranger who had just done something incomprehensible. The door clicked shut, leaving the apartment in a state of deafening silence. The remnants of the party, the half-eaten cheese, the abandoned glasses, felt like debris from a shipwreck. I stood there, my heart still pounding, a sick feeling starting to replace the earlier rush of power. Ezra finally turned to look at me. The disappointment in his eyes had hardened into something else. Something detached and final. He walked past me without a word, went into our bedroom, and came out a moment later with a duffel bag. A bag I'd never seen before, but that was clearly packed and ready. He must have had it stashed in the back of the closet. A contingency plan. The thought hit me like a physical blow. Ezra, I whispered, my voice trembling. He didn't stop. He walked to the front door, pausing with his hand on the knob. I always thought you were just insecure, Rowan, he said, his voice flat, devoid of all the warmth I knew. I thought I could love you enough to make you feel safe, but I was wrong. He finally looked at me and his gaze was chilling. You're not insecure, you're just mean. You're cruel. He pulled out his phone. I watched, paralyzed, as he navigated to my contact, his thumb hovering for a second before he pressed block. Then he did the same on Instagram, on Facebook. A systematic, methodical erasure. We're done, he said. And then he opened the door and walked out, closing it softly behind him. The click of the lock was the loudest sound I had ever heard. The first 24 hours were a blur of denial. I kept expecting him to come back. He'd cool off, I told myself. He was just angry. He'd realize he overreacted. I sent him a text, a long, rambling paragraph about how I didn't mean it, how I was just joking, how my friends had gotten in my head. It didn't deliver. I tried to call. It went straight to voicemail, a generic, robotic voice telling me the user's mailbox was full. Of course it was. He was probably being flooded with messages from his friends, all of them asking what happened, all of them telling him he'd done the right thing. By the second day, panic began to set in. The apartment was a mausoleum. His coffee mug was still by the sink. His running shoes were by the door. His scent lingered on the pillows. It was like he had been raptured, and I was the only one left behind in the silent, empty world we had built. I frantically checked his social media, only to be met with the sterile gray page that said user not found. He hadn't just left. He had excised me from his digital existence with surgical precision. This is when I turned to my friends, my audience. I needed them to validate me, to tell me he was being ridiculous, to shore up the crumbling foundation of my justification. I called Vanessa, my voice cracking with a manufactured sob story. He just left, can you believe it? Over one stupid comment, he just packed a bag and left. I was expecting a chorus of I told you so's mixed with outrage on my behalf. I was expecting her to say, good riddance, you're better off without that drama. Instead, there was a long, awkward pause on the other end of the line. Oh, Vanessa said, her voice strangely flat. Wow, that's intense. Intense, it's insane, I cried, desperate for her to join my side. You were there, you saw it, it was a joke. Yeah, I mean, I guess he just didn't take it that way, she said, her tone evasive. Listen, Rowan, I'm actually in the middle of something right now, can I call you back? She didn't wait for an answer before hanging up. The call back never came. I tried Maya next. Her response was even more chilling. Look, Rowan, I feel for you, I really do, she said, her voice strained with discomfort, but I don't want to get in the middle of this. It's between you and Ezra. Get in the middle, they had been my Greek chorus, my instigators. They had passed me the torch, and now that I had set the world on fire, they were stepping back, complaining about the smoke. It was a brutal, clarifying moment. I saw it all with sickening clarity. I wasn't their friend. I was their entertainment. They had placed their bets, watched the fight, and now they were cashing out, leaving the loser to bleed out on the arena floor. The validation I had so desperately performed for, the approval I had sacrificed my relationship for, was a mirage. The theater was empty, the audience had gone home. And I was alone on the stage, under a single, harsh spotlight, with the full weight of what I had done crashing down on me. In the weeks that followed, my world shrank to the size of my phone screen. I couldn't look at Ezra's profiles, but I quickly realized I didn't have to. Lily's Instagram was public. It became a ritual, a form of self-flagellation. I'd wake up, and before my eyes had even adjusted to the morning light, my thumb would be tapping on that familiar purple and orange icon. I created a fake account, a ghost with no name and no followers, just so I could watch undetected. I became a digital archaeologist, sifting through the ruins of a life that was once partially mine. At first, it was just pictures of her dissertation, art, her cat, normal things. I'd scroll obsessively, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. I was looking for him. I knew I was. Every group photo, every tagged post, I'd zoom in, my breath held, searching for his face in the background. And then, about a month after he left, I found him. It was a picture Lily had posted. A casual Sunday afternoon. A group of them, Lily, Anya, Sam, and Ezra, were sitting around a wooden table at a sunny outdoor cafe. There were empty coffee cups and plates with croissant crumbs. They were all laughing. Not a polite, posed laugh for the camera, but a genuine, deep-bellied laugh, the kind that makes your eyes crinkle at the corners. Ezra was in the middle of it, his head thrown back, a wide, unburdened smile on his face. He looked lighter, he looked free, but it was the caption that shattered me. It was so simple, so innocent. Some family is chosen. I stared at the words until they blurred. Family, that's what they were, and I, for a brief, beautiful period, had been invited in. I had a guest pass to their world, a world of unwavering support and shared history, a world where pride was pure and friendship was unconditional. Ezra hadn't just offered me his love. He had offered me a seat at that table, and I had taken that invitation, walked into the center of their home, and told them their entire foundation was a lie. I hadn't just insulted them. I had tried to poison the very thing that sustained them, that sustained him. The finality of it was absolute. It wasn't just a breakup, it was an exile. I had made my choice that night at the party. I had chosen the cheap thrill of a cynical joke over the quiet, steady warmth of belonging. I had chosen the approval of an audience that didn't care about me over the love of a man who did. Now my only connection to him is through this screen, a ghost haunting the edges of his new, happier life. I close my eyes and I'm back in our apartment, the silence pressing in. I open them and I'm looking at that photo again. I zoom in on his smiling face, a face I'll never kiss again. I see the easy way his arm is draped over the back of Lily's chair. I see a life that is moving on, healing and thriving without me. And I just keep refreshing the page again and again, as if by watching, I can somehow punish myself enough to make the ache go away. But it never does.